Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I have a task list for today. Make a bonsai video, that's far later in the day, and there are just under 30, 26, 27 items on my repot list, and I'm going to do as many as I possibly can during today. The only watering I've actually got to do is to put the spray around the mounts. Everything else is fine. I've sorted out the plants to go to Malvern, did that trip, that was good. Had a nice time at Alan's, had a look around his greenhouse and the plants that he's sending, loading up his van and everything. Yeah, so I'm going to repot as much as I can today. I'm not filming it all. I will drop the camera in bits and pieces. So I don't want the camera work to hold me up. I'd like to get as much of this done as possible today. I have a limitation, obviously, the amount of media I've got, but I think that's going to be okay, in as much as I've got sort of large bark and what's called medium bark, which is a mixture of medium and small. And by mixing those in, adding in some moss and possibly some other stuff, I'll go over my media in a minute, I think I can bulk up enough to be able to do everything that I want to do. And I'm going to do it in batches, so I'm going to look at the individual plants. I'm working with my notes here and think, right, that plant needs that media, that plant needs that media, and then batch them together so that I've got a batch of orchids that all need the same media. I can get them all out of their pots, clean them up, possibly film one of them, or maybe two, and then mix up a job lot, get them all potted up, put them to one side, and then at the end water them all thoroughly, because one of the types of media, the large bark, is as dusty as anything. I don't want to get it wet prior to potting, that's not how I work, so they'll all need a thorough watering afterwards. And what I do is I just water them with the filtered tap water so that I can give them a good flush. Then after I've done that, water them with the RO water to flush out that filtered water. Not that it would do any harm for one watering, it's just to get that initial dust out. So that's the plan, and we'll see how far we get. And as I said, I'll drop the camera in at regular intervals to film bits that won't. The camera work won't be one video, it will be several, otherwise it will just be too long and too disjointed. So the first lot of repotting that I film will go on the end of this introduction. Other parts of it will be separate videos as I progress. And I'll see how far I get and I'll keep you posted. But it's going to be a long day, but not really, because it's all going to be done in bits and pieces throughout the day. There'll be a lot of fetching and carrying from the shed, but the shed's just down there now. I can use this door. That's where all my pots are. That's where my extra media is. So there'll be some fetching and carrying to do. Lots of emptying of the tray. Whoosh, gone, start again, but I'll see how far I get. I want it to be a leisurely, pleasurable day. At the point it starts getting tedious and I start getting ratty with things, it's time to stop. So we'll see how far we get. Wish me luck. See you. I was just going to say see you next time. This is a good start. I haven't even got my brain on. More coffee. Thanks for dropping by is what I meant to say. Let's get going. Okay, the first batch I've got 5 Restrepias, a Masdevallia and the Dracuvalia. And first job is to just get them out of the pots. As I said, I'm working with a lot of plants today, so there will be speed involved and an excess of pots all over the place and labels all over the place. Restrepias are pretty sturdy in the root department. Pretty sturdy, quite honestly. Now this has got some old roots in the centre of the plant. Old, I say, these are not necessarily not viable. This just needs some new media to grow into. So that's all that's going to get. What I am going to do, no, actually I'm not. Right, so that's number one, with its label stuck in the middle of the plant. This isn't going to work because they're not going to stand up. Never mind. Right, this is one of Hannah's little ones. Pots to one side to keep the names with these. Now these have pushed out reasonable root systems since they arrived with no roots. So again, this is just old tired media. That means, you know, there's an amount of acidity in amongst these roots that it could just do without. So again, I'm not going to attempt to take every bit off, and I'm desperately trying not to damage any roots. If I do see any of the cocoa husk clinging to the roots, which I've just got 2 pieces of, I will remove it, because that's the stuff I'm more worried about going off. Right, so that's that little one with its label. And then there's the other little one of Hannah's. Should be in the same sort of boat really. This was the one that was a bit high. It was potted a bit high in the pot. So I mean these two may well go back in the same size pot. You know, they don't. Restrepias don't need lots of room for their roots because they're such a fine root system. They're quite happy in a small pot. The only thing is, obviously, once I've repotted it with new media, the smaller the pot, the more often I'll have to water it, initially. Right, so that'll do for that one. Just looking out again for any cocoa husk that's clinging onto the roots. Those are the bits I want off. Apart from that, a few bits of bark won't hurt. Given the volume of the pieces left over, if you think of the volume of the new media that it's going to get, it doesn't matter. So that one goes there with its label. Right, so then we've got a Masdevallia here that is in a state. Its leaves are bad, but the new leaves are coming on reasonably well at the moment, so those are the leaves I'm sort of working on. So this is just a hybrid, and it has started to grow roots. So new media now is going to be a good thing for this plant. We do have roots, new roots coming out, and we've still got new roots growing at the top of the plant as well. So this plant's coming on now from nowhere. You know, this has been a long time with a lousy, virtually non-existent root system. We do have a problem with this one. I've got scale on the roots. Now this is why treating your plant doesn't always work, because they're in the pot. Yeah? Now, I don't know whether this is going to work or not, but in my little sprayer under the bench here is actually hydrogen peroxide. Now, I don't know whether that kills bugs or not. We've got quite a few dead roots on here, you know, sort of starting to seriously go over. So I am going to give this a trim. So I don't want to put those back in. It just seems pointless. So we will try and get those out. Most of them will probably just pull off. Yeah, they're just falling apart. Good. Well, that saves a lot of mucking about with the scissors. And what's left is not a bad root system. Not bad. But, there's my sprayer. There he is. As I said, I don't know whether hydrogen peroxide would actually skill these types of crawler stage of the scale or not. It's not designed to be a bug killer, but this will help with any rotting or anything that's setting in with these roots. Clean up pathogens and things like that. Who knows, it may deck the scale as well in there. They're very lightweight, the crawler stage. They're actually, if you can get through that waxy coating that some of them seem to put on, they're actually quite easy to deck. It's just that they perpetuate so easily. That's the thing with these Bois-Duval scale. Now this is the Dracuvalia, a letter page. It's been in this pot too long. It stays wet far too long. I'm hoping we've got some root activity. And I think some new media will do this one the world of good. Yeah, we do have some roots now. What this needs is some nice, clean, healthy media to get into. So that's what it's going to get. It's got roots, and it's a small plant. These roots have got growing tips. This will pull on now. So that's that one. And then that's all that we'll be putting in that place, because now we're on to big stuff. Real big stuff. I'm surprised that came out that easy. I was expecting that to be, whoops, onto the floor. Absolutely stuck. Now this has got to be a bit brutal. It's got far too much media for the active roots, if you see what I mean. Now there are active roots. There are roots coming down on here that are white with growing tips. So it's also got a load of roots that are just going to come off, because I'll have a other job getting them in the pot anyway. So we get all these dangly roots off, and then I think this is going to be, do I want kikis? I'll sort that out when I pot it. What I'll probably do with the kikis is take them off and plant them with the plant. The plant could do with a real tidy up. All these dead flower spikes could do with coming off. But that's the time I don't want to spend today. I want to get these back in decent media and put to one side and tick them off as potted, repotted, sorry. So, nice root system. I may try that in a smaller, more confined pot that will be deeper, but it can be cropped at the bottom to maintain the shallow root system that these tend to like. And for somewhere for it to be till I repot it, it can just stand in its old pot for now. Then the last one in this batch is the other big Restrepia. Oh, better keep the label with it. So this is the last big Restrepia. Are you going to come out easy? Not too bad, not too bad. Label. And again, this is very, very old, tired Fausti media. This would have been the small grade Orchiata bark when this was potted, and this is where some of the trouble has been. It's also got, yeah, it's also got moss in it. I'd forgotten that. It's also got a stone in it. What? It's difference in the noise. Thought that was a bit strange. Yeah, so this has got new growths coming. This root system's not as good. It has got some active roots, but not as many as the previous big one. Again, I'm going to trim the long dangly ones. It's a branching root system. This will induce branching and new roots to come, you know, from the branches. So we'll get growing tips down here. Once it gets some media that's fresh, you know, and I mean this is probably quite acidic. And what it looks like I did here is I got a handful of media, which was mainly moss, and put it up around the base of the plant. Well, if that's gone acidic, then every new root that tries to come out is going to go straight into acidic media, which it's not going to like. So there we go. That's the first batch out of their pots. Next job is clear the rubbish up, empty the media out of my tray, and I will be using the tray to mix up my batch of media for those plants, and then I will just get some pots suitable for the plants and start doing them. I'll film one and then I'll stop filming for this particular one. I'll be back. Okay, media choices. I've been down in the shed and brought an assortment of pots. I don't know what I'm going to use yet, but there's, you know, out of the sizes I've got, those are they. And as you can see, we have gaps because the difference between those two is quite dramatic, and then the difference between those middle ones and these is quite dramatic. There are some pot sizes that are just missing at the moment, just can't get them. So we make do, and like I've said before, if you've got a pot that's a bit too big, put some crocking in it and don't bring the plant right up to the top of the pot. Only pot it halfway up, and then you've got a shallow set of media. So it turns a big pot into a small pot. We have the essential coffee. I've just had my first break. Right, so what have we got then? Choices. First of all, we've got our Welsh moss, which is down the side here, because I haven't got room for it in here. And what else have we got? What we have found is another bag, which I didn't realise I had, of the giant rock hard bark. Now that's not going to be of any use at all for what we're doing now, which is the Masdevallias and Ristrethias and the like. But I've got some, you know, this is Cattleya media, this stuff, this is good stuff. And impossible to get again. So we've got that's there. In here we have a type of leca. Now this is a type of leca that you probably can't get, and I wish I'd never got, because I got this to try the sort of semi-hydro, and this stuff will not wick. Looks like everybody else's leca, doesn't it? But it isn't. It doesn't hold water, therefore it doesn't wick. I tried an experiment. I put some of that in a glass and filled it up with a measured amount of water, and then the next day I poured the water off and it was the same. It hadn't soaked in. And then I tried again. I put some dry stuff in a glass and I put an inch of water in the bottom of that glass, and it went up 1/4 of an inch. It didn't wick at all. So as that type of semi-hydro leca is concerned, it doesn't work. But what it is good for is crocking at the bottom of the pots, and also extra drainage, extra aeration, almost like grit, if you see what I mean. So I forgot I had that. So that's another type of media. We've got this, which we've used very little. Now this is a sort of grow stone. It's strange because it feels greasy, and when you handle it you get covered in sort of whitish dust. I'm not quite sure what it is, I've forgotten, but it came from an orchid supplier and is useful for mixing in. It's lightweight, it weighs nothing. It weighs nothing at all, so it's not useful for weighing down your pots and stopping them tipping over, but again it's useful for drainage and it's useful for extra aeration. So that's that. I'm going to end up falling over this lot. Now what have we got in here? I haven't opened this one. This could be a bag of... right, that's the rest of the giant bark. So those two bags can go into one. So that's just more of the same. And then what we've got here is charcoal, which is very useful for helping just make the media last a bit longer before it starts to sour. It does it by absorbing toxins, allegedly. I can't prove it one way or the other. My worry is that if it treats your fertiliser, your feed, as toxins, then it's going to absorb your feed from the media and hold it. And then you get to the point, well, how much can it hold? Because it can't go absorbing it forever. If you think of a filter in like a water jug or something that's based on charcoal, that type of filter, you have to change them every so often because they stop working. So how long is it in an orchid pot that this actually stops working? I don't know. Those are all unanswered questions. But I've got some. Lots of people use it, and I have used it in the past. I may use it now. So that's the choices we've got. Now we are dealing with the finest root systems I've got. This is the Restrepias, up to small, delicate, sort of more delicate root systems, which on these set of plants is the Masdevallias. Now some Masdevallias do have quite substantial roots, and they would need a chunkier media, so they've still got plenty of air around them, but not the ones I've got here in this batch. So right, I've got 2 big ones, 3 that I'll class as medium, and 2 small. So that's the sort of amount we're looking at. I didn't show you the other bark I've got. This is the recently purchased larger bark. This is the filthy stuff. This is, you can see it's getting on my hands already. That's before you get it wet. So it's good stuff. It's hard. I think it's substantial bark. It's useful stuff, but it is dirty. So it needs a good rinse. But I don't like working with wet media because the roots don't get in the gaps properly because the media sticks together and stops it happening. I like to work with dry media in the main. So I'm not going to rinse it until it's in the pot, and then I'll rinse the dirt out of the pot. That will also help settle the roots in. So that's one type of bark there. And then the other type is the Burnham's so-called medium bark, that in my opinion is small. Yeah, and that is a good size for what I'm about to pot up, a very good size. Unfortunately, this is also the bark that I've got the least of. Nonetheless, that's the start of my mix. So we will start with a goodly portion of this, and that's going to use up a fair bit of it. I am going to run out, despite bulking this up. Now I'm hoping not to mix up a second lot. So that's that. I'm then going to add in some of these grow stone things. This is, you could call this like a perlite substitute. Yeah, there's a lot of people add the sort of large perlite in. Which I have done. I've used that. I've still got some somewhere, but I'm not happy about playing with the stuff because of the dust, which is harmful. If you breathe in that dust, it doesn't do you any good at all. So I'm sort of trying to not use it anymore. Right, so that's some of those. I am going to put some of this bark in. Now this is larger bark and it's a bit large for the type of roots, but it will help bulk the media up and guarantee that there's some air gaps. So that's that. Dust up my nose now. Let's dust off that bark. Now I'm going to add some charcoal. Reason is still uncertain. I've got the flipping stuff. It came from Burnham's. Sarah says she sells a fair bit of it, so a fair few people must be using it. And unlike some other stuff I got off the internet, Sarah's bark tends to be bark and not a bag full of dust.
So we will have quite a smattering of that. So I'm going by eye. I look at the colour to see how much of a percentage of the mix is actually the stuff I'm currently using. Right, so that's all that. Luckily, the next batch of plants that I will probably do, if there is any left over of this, it can go in as a sort of starting point and can be used for the next batch of orchids, which will be in a separate video, by the way. I'm not putting those in the same one. Right, and now I'm going to add in Welsh moss and tear it up. But I'm not going to tear it up into the tiniest of pieces. I'm going to have a fair bit of this. We are looking at, this is my moisture retention. This is it. This is my substitute for the zombie moss, the dry sphagnum moss. And in theory, this doesn't go off because it's a living thing. I haven't been doing it long enough to prove that one way or the other. It's a very coarse moss, and I'm worried that if I tear the pieces up too small, the pieces are not viable anymore as a living thing. So they do need some green on them, if you know what I mean, to be a living thing. But this stuff has grown in this tray quite a lot since I got it. This is my only wet ingredient. I can't really have this dry, can I? But you can see that when this is mixed in, it will thread its way through all of the pot. So it will retain moisture in all the places that it exists, which should be like an area, little fine threads all through the media that have got moisture. And because it's a living thing, like I say, it shouldn't go off. So it should stay, should help keep the moisture in the pot in places without keeping it soaking wet because it's so coarse. And this is an experiment because I don't know if this is going to work because I haven't used it before in this way. So then what we do is we start stirring that in, and it doesn't stir itself in very well because of the size of it. So when I'm putting the stuff in the pots, I just have to make sure I've got some and it's mixed in. And I might need to add a bit more as I go along. So that gives me a basis for what I'm going to do. Right, whereabouts are we on the camera? Yeah, that bit there is in full view, so we'll be okay to keep the media over here, do the repotting there. Right, I'm only going to film one, and I'll film one of the big ones because that was what was requested. Yeah? In the list of requests that I asked for, I had a look through and thought, well, you know, these are the most popular ones, and this was one of the requests, a large Restrepia. So this is Falkenbergii species, originally from Burnham's as a little, I think it was an 8-pound plant, so smaller than those small ones we saw just now. Right, and that is going to go in, where did I put my pots? Up there. That is going to go in one of these, which is an air cone pot, but it's a shallow air cone, yeah? So I want the plant in quite deep, and I don't really want any crocking. So I'm just going to load some media in, get this plant in there, and I'm going to plant it low. By low, it will hold the leaves together and create a little humid zone around the base of the plant, and the roots can fight their way into that media as they choose to do so. Right, so you can see the roots fit in there quite well. It's not like I'm, you know, cramming them into a pot where they can't breathe. They are going in there quite well. And I've put quite a bit in there with the plant held back over there. Now I'm going to come round to the opposite side, the complete opposite side, and push that plant back against the media that I've just put in there. And that now leaves me a gap to put some in this side. We've still got the two ends to do. Yeah, so we've done the sides. Now a quarter turn, and come round to here. As you can see, there's a gap. We'll get some down in there. Now a half turn again to get us up to that other bit that we haven't done. And there isn't much to do there because it creeps round from the two sides. Right, so let's have a look at the base of the plant. We haven't buried it, have we? No, we haven't buried it. It's a little higher in the pot than I wanted, but then it is quite a large root system this time round. And I can press on that media down the sides as hard as I like. I can't possibly exclude the air because part of what's in there are stones. You can't squash a stone. So that's it. That's how they're all going to get done. And then they're all just going to get, where are they going to get thrown? They're going to get thrown back on that shelf ready to be watered later. So that's what I'm going to do to the rest of them. You don't need to see it all. The video gets too long. But being the first video, obviously we looked at the selection of the plants, the concept of what I'm doing as a day's work today, and the first batch into the first video, plus we've looked at all the different types of media that I've got and the batch that I mixed up specifically for these plants. So, oh, dirty mitts, and I haven't got my towel out here either, and I need to touch the camera. Oh well. Something like that. Flick it all in my coffee. Well, only a little bit. Right, so that'll be video one in this set of videos, which is my massive repotting session, hopefully to be done in one day. And, you know, I'll be filming other things, but not to the extent that we've done in this first one. Others will be just, let's get this batch of plants out of the pots, have a chat about the media, and pop one. So that's how I'm going to work. Now, some of the batches might only have 2 or 3 plants in. Some could have like this, half a dozen or so. We'll see how they go. But they'll be split up into videos based really on the media that I'm going to mix. That'll be the criteria really. And I won't need to show all the different types of media again. I'll refer back to this one. Okay, thanks for dropping by. See you next time.